We live in interesting times. Today's stories. North Korea's top diplomat meets the Swedish Prime Minister. Hong Kong's richest tycoon Li Ka-shing to retire. Toys R Us to close all U.S. stores. Tearful reunions and uncertain fates for Syrians fleeing Ghouta. Thousands of Slovaks protest the government despite a new prime minister. 9 are dead in a Burundi landslide. Plus, Canada hosts top teams in World Rugby 7 Series. And downtown sparkles during the Toronto Light Festival. This is Eagle News Canada, bringing you stories from around the globe. I am Lou Aquino. North Korea's foreign minister held talks in Stockholm with Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven on Friday amid reports Sweden could play a role in setting up a proposed summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Nikagel with the report.
Ri Yong-ho arrived in the Swedish capital on Thursday evening with Cho Kang II, Deputy Director General of the Foreign Ministry's North America section. Ri held talks late Thursday with his Swedish counterpart Margot Wallström, discussions which, according to Swedish officials, were to focus on the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and a possible Trump-Kim summit.
Men om vi kan möjliggöra det samtalet, facilitera på något sätt, oavsett i vilken form detta nu tar sig förhoppningsvis, så ska vi göra det naturligtvis. Det här är så oerhört viktigt för den delen av världen, men för oss alla, att det här inte eskalerar, utan tvärtom att vi kan bygga trygghet och gemensam säkerhet. Det är det som vi måste sträva efter.
Some Swedish and foreign media have said that Ri, who was stationed at North Korea's embassy in Stockholm in 1985 to 1988, will stay in the Scandinavian country until Sunday. For other talks, though Swedish officials would not confirm those reports. Swedish public broadcaster SVT meanwhile said the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute was involved in the talks, though SIPRI did not return AFP's calls for comment. Sweden has long-standing ties with North Korea. Its diplomatic mission in Pyongyang, which opened in 1975, was the first Western embassy established in the country. The embassy also represents U.S., Canadian, and Australian diplomatic interests in North Korea, with Sweden playing a key role in liaising diplomatic talks. International media have speculated that Sweden could either help set up a proposed summit or be a potential location if a tete-a-tete were to be confirmed. Sweden's foreign ministry has refused to comment on that possibility, saying that only the talks would focus on Sweden's consular responsibilities as a protecting power for the United States, Canada, and Australia. After months of tension and warmongering over Pyongyang's nuclear program, Trump has agreed to a summit proposal relayed by South Korean envoys who met Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang, but no specific time or venue has been set, and North Korea has yet to confirm it, even made the offer to meet. I am Nika Alpagia, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Nikagel. 89-year-old Hong Kong tycoon Li Ka-shing, who has announced his retirement, started his career selling plastic flowers and spent 7 decades building a vast business empire spanning everything from container ports to telecommunications. Ansel Morano reports.
我會在主持5月10號股東大會之後，正式離任集團嘅主席嘅位置。
The billionaire earned the nickname Superman for his business acumen and was so influential in Hong Kong that islanders joke he could prevent typhoons from hitting on working days. These companies are part of the fabric of Hong Kong life, providing everything from internet services to supermarket chains, while his decisions have the potential to affect property and utility prices for the city's 7 million residents as investors hang on his every word. Li was born in 1928 in the mainland Chinese city of Chaozhou. His family fled to neighboring Hong Kong during the Sino-Japanese War. In an interview with Forbes magazine in 2012, Li recalled bombs being dropped on his hometown when he was in primary school. He first started his own business in 1950, manufacturing plastic flowers, calling the company Cheongkong after China's Yangtze River. But after diversifying into property, he saw large profits in the 1960s, and in the following decades, his businesses expanded into a diverse range of sectors. As the business grew, so did its global reach, with the 1980s seeing the firm make investments in the Canadian property and energy sectors. According to Forbes, his companies now employ 310,000 people in more than 50 countries. The magazine listed Lee as the world's 23rd richest person in a 2018 ranking of leading billionaires, 3 places behind Alibaba founder Jack Ma and 6 behind Tencent's Pony Ma, with a net worth of $34.9 billion. Lee invested heavily in China in the 1990s, the dedicated capitalist courting Beijing's communist leaders as the Asian nation began to emerge as an economic superpower. But recent years have seen him offload major Chinese property investments in a move seen as part of a quest for stability for his business and a sign of diminishing confidence as the mainland's formerly stratospheric growth rates cool. The move irked Chinese critics. He has also sought to trim his Hong Kong assets, and his CK Asset Holdings sold its stake in the Center Skyscraper, one of the jewels in the crown of his property portfolio in the city, in November for a record Hong Kong $40.2 billion or $5.2 billion. Analysts said the deal showed CK Asset's move to diversify out of real estate as it expands into infrastructure and energy. 3 years ago, Lee announced a sweeping rearrangement of his vast business empire, which was expected to pave the way for him to hand over the reins to his eldest son, Victor. The restructure combined assets from multiple sectors under 2 new listed companies. After the announcement of the revamp, when asked if he was preparing to pass the baton to his son, a lively Lee said he would have to retire someday. Ansel Morano, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Anne. Toys R Us, the iconic retail chain that has captivated American kids for generations, has announced plans to shut all of its U.S. stores, becoming one of the biggest casualties of retail shakeout amid the rise of e-commerce. Michael Gruzo with the report. Michael?
It's actually bad because Toys R Us, Baby R Us been around for years. That's where we get our toys from. I grew up on their toys, and it's just horrible.
The That Play company announced in the early hours of Thursday that it has filed a motion for bankruptcy court approval to liquidate its U.S. operations, a move that could hit 33,000 jobs. It said in a statement the chain will shutter all 735 stores remaining in the United States, down from the 881 it listed just last month. For shoppers, the company says gift cards will be honored for 30 days. The privately held company says it is exploring a plan to sell 200 top-performing U.S. stores in a package deal with its Canadian division. That scenario could potentially keep the Toys R Us brand alive, but in a much reduced form compared with its pre-internet heyday, when it thrilled a generation of children with its well-stocked aisles and its friendly mascot, Geoffrey the Giraffe. Started in 1948 by World War II veteran Charles Lazarus at a single store in the U.S. capital Washington called Children's Bargain Town. The company began calling itself Toys R Us in 1957 and went public in 1978 after a period of heavy growth. It remained a retail force through the 1980s, but its star began to fade in the 1990s as big box stores such as Walmart and Target began selling more toys at lower prices. In 2005, it yielded to the pressure and was taken private by a consortium of investors that included the KKR Group and Bain Capital, a move that saddled the company with billions of dollars of debt. More recently, Toys R Us has been buffeted by the competition from Amazon and other online vendors, which has generated bankruptcies across the retail sector and created a generation of dead malls nationwide, amid the shift away from brick and mortar to click and deliver. In September, the company filed for bankruptcy protection, hoping to reorganize $5 billion in long-term debt.
It's been in my world. I've known about it my entire life. And when I had my son, being right around the corner was definitely good. It's going to be sad to see him going out of business, you know?
I definitely grew up in the era of Toys R Us as the big toy store. There were others, but it's where I took my childhood gift certificates to spend. So it's sad to see it close, especially as they're just being gutted out by venture capitalists.
Factors contributing to the bad performance included a drop in toy and gift card sales after the bankruptcy filing and the aggressive moves of competitors. who price toys at low margins or as loss leaders, prices at which the debtors could not compete because they rely exclusively on toys for profit. Neil Saunders, managing director of Global Data Retail, blamed the company's woes on heavy debt level, a remnant of the leveraged buyout and poor leadership. Analysts said the demise of Toys R Us in the U.S. will be a hit to the toy industry. The company's sales have fallen in recent years, but still came in at $11.5 billion in 2017, including $7.1 billion in the U.S. According to NPD Group, a market research group, the U.S. toy market, the world's largest, took in $20.7 billion in sales last year. Michael Gruzo, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Up next, tearful reunions and uncertain fates for the Syrians fleeing Ghouta. Thousands of Slovaks protest the government despite a new prime minister. 9 are dead in Burundi landslide. Eagle News Canada will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News Canada. Syrian soldier Ayman al-Khatib scoured the crowd streaming out of eastern Ghouta until he spotted his parents. Falling to his knees, he embraced them for the first time in 7 years.
A year after young fighter Ayman al-Khatib left his hometown in 2011 for compulsory military service, Ghouta fell to rebels, putting Khatib and his parents on opposite sides of one of Syria's most ferocious battlefronts. Zakaria and the rest of the Khatib family were among around 2,000 people who fled Ghouta on Friday through a safe corridor leading into government-held territory.
أنا سمستي ما شفته لأبني. أنا أبني بعيد عليه ما شفته، زوجتي بالشام ما شفته. عندي رجالي أولاد بالشام ما شفته. اليوم حياتي رجعت اليوم حياتي رجعت إن شاء الله اليوم بروح هيك بعمل حمام بظبط حالي إن شاء الله تعالى. عندي عيد وعرس وهنا.
Tens of thousands are estimated to have fled Ghouta using 2 access routes carved out by the Syrian army as part of its assault on the one-time opposition bastion on the outskirts of the capital. The towns, villages, and lush agricultural fields that make up eastern Ghouta were home to around 400,000 residents, but had been sealed off from nearby Damascus since 2013. With all roads closed, Khatib was not able to attend the funeral of his brother, killed 2 years ago in the violence ravaging the suburb. Since February 18, the government's air and ground assault has recaptured 70% of Ghouta, and Khatib was battling alongside the troops as they pressed into his own hometown.
كان شيء لا يوصف. أنا بشوفتي لأبي شفته رجعت لي الحياة هذه كلياتها. أنا صار لي 7 سنين قاطع الأمل نهائيا. مع هدول الأولاد الصغار اللي شفتهم لأول مرة بشوفهم هدول الأولاد الصغار. هدول ما بعرف هدول الأولاد الصغار أنا أول مرة هدول بشوفهم.
Similar reunions were taking place all along the dusty roadside, where displaced families were awaiting buses to take them to temporary shelters in Damascus. Syria's ambassador to the United Nations, Bashar al-Jafari, said 40,000 people had escaped on Thursday alone. The influx has overwhelmed the temporary shelters set up on the edges of Damascus by Syrian authorities, who were bracing themselves Friday for new numbers. In Adra, a government-held quarter north of Ghouta, some 3,000 displaced people were being hosted in a school-turned-shelter. Some water and food had been distributed, but many had spent the night sleeping on the floor and long lines formed at the public bathrooms. Amy Plamenko, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Tens of thousands of protesters took the streets across Slovakia on Friday to call for snap elections, saying the premier's resignation was not enough to fix what they see as a corrupt government. Thomas I. Likeness with the details.
The local Denik N newspaper said about 50,000 people turned out in the capital of Bratislava alone, where protesters carried signs with slogans like "Slovakia is going the wrong way" and "We want elections."
Rodičia naši tu v 89. štrngali kľúčami, aby my sme sa mali lepšie a teda takto si tú lepšiu budúcnosť určite oni nepredstavovali.
Organizers of the For a Decent Slovakia protest had announced there would be rallies in 34 cities at home and 25 cities abroad.
Podľa mňa by sa malo stať to, že celá vláda by mala padnúť a mali by byť predčasné voľby jednoznačne. Aby sa ľudia rozhodli, lebo toto je podľa mňa úplne to najspravodlivejšie riešenie, ktoré teraz prichádza do úvahy.
The EU member has been in political crisis since last month's killing of an investigative journalist who had been probing alleged ties between top politicians and the Italian mafia. Faced with street protests, threats to quit from a coalition partner, and a no-confidence vote tabled by the opposition, Robert Fico resigned as Prime Minister on Thursday. But analysts believe he will continue to pull the strings from behind the scenes as the chairman of the governing SMER-SD party, whose deputy, Peter Pellegrini, was tapped to become the new Prime Minister. The country's three-party government coalition remains in place. It consists of the left-wing populist SMER-SD and two junior partners, the most-hid Hungarian Minority Party and the far-right Slovak National Party.
Prišla som preto podporiť dobrú vec samozrejme a ako hovorí môj transparent, aby som nemusela odchádzať do cudziny, aby som sa tu cítila dobre a bezpečne.
The demonstrations came after journalist Jan Kuciak and his fiancée, both 27, were found shot dead at their home near Bratislava on February 25th. Police said Kuciak's death was most likely related to his investigation into alleged ties between top Slovakia politicians and Italy's Ndrangheta mafia. The murder in Kuciak's article, which was published posthumously, raised fresh concern about media freedom and sparked anti-government sentiment in the EU member of 5.4 million people. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News, I'm one with 25.
Thanks, Thomas. 9 workers at a construction site outside Burundi's capital Bujumbura were killed in a landslide. Alisa De Jesus with the details.
Heavy seasonal rains caused the hillside next to the Gasenyu River, east of the city, to collapse, burying the workers who were building a channel to redirect the river's flood waters.
Nous sommes sur ce chantier, c'est la rivière Gasenyu, où il y a eu un glissement de terrain ce matin. Et provisoirement, on nous a appris qu'il y aurait 9 morts. C'est un accident qui arrive souvent sur le chantier, mais nous avons pris les précautions nécessaires d'assurer le chantier. Donc l'assurance va travailler avec l'entreprise, avec les familles, pour pouvoir indemniser les victimes.
Police said in a statement that 9 bodies had so far been found, while rescue efforts continue. Alisa De Jesus, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Canada's host top teams in World Rugby 7 Series. And downtown sparkles during the Toronto Light Festival. That's next. Eagle News Canada will return shortly. This is Eagle News Canada. I'm Lou Aquino. Canada hosts top teams in World Rugby 7 Series. Anthony Sevilla reports.
Canada's Sevens team played host to 16 of the top Rugby Sevens union from around the world in Vancouver, British Columbia for the HSBC World Rugby 7 Series here at BC Place Stadium. Canada was paired up in Pool A alongside Australia, Uruguay, and North American rival United States.
In their first game in pool play, the match between Canada and Australia would lead to a 19-19 draw. After a slow start, Canada gave an early try to Australia at kickoff, but found their groove to lead 12-7, ending the half. Australia would retake the lead in the second, but Canada made a last-second push that would get the game-tying try to end the match in a draw. Looking to bring that same energy and intensity against continental rival United States, drop balls for Canada would cause a turnover in the opposite end, leading to a Perry Baker try, cross field, and to secure the victory for USA. A heartbreaking loss for Canada would give them that extra motivation against Uruguay, which was on full display as they defeated Uruguay 47-5.
We show flashes for sure. We show we can compete with anybody as long as it's been a big thing for us, consistency.
Despite excellent play in preliminaries, a 1-1-1 record was not enough in Pool A to qualify for the Cup quarterfinals. This forced Canada to play in the Challengers Trophy quarterfinals, where they took on Scotland's Sevens. A slow start for Canada on day 2, as they were unable to make a mark on the box score, as Scotland, the eventual Challengers Trophy winners, won 19-0. In the 13th place semi-final match, they would bounce back from the loss to defeat France 31-19. Canada would fall to Samoa in the 13th place matchup, 21-15. Team Canada never gave up, and the fans supported them until the very end.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. To stick behind us through the entire tournament, through the ups and downs. We wish we could have impressed a little bit more, but hope to do one more next year, win the whole thing. Yeah, I think the good thing is we played a lot of good rugby on day one. Close with USA, close with our tied Australia as well, and they're at the top all the time right now. Vegas won last weekend, so knowing that we can play at that caliber is great. Just repeating it, getting that mental adjustment.
Canada will head back on the road for 2 more tournaments in Asia in Hong Kong and Singapore, with hopes of qualifying for the 2018 Rugby Sevens World Cup in San Francisco, California this summer.
Reporting for Eagle News Canada, I'm Anthony Sevilla, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Anthony. The historic Distillery District in Toronto gets lit during the Toronto Light Festival. Marco Zerudo with the story. Marco?
Lights, cameras, and more lights. We're on location at the Toronto Light Festival at the historic Distillery District to shine some light on how this place in the middle of the winter season has become the creative illumination destination. Creating something uniquely positive is the goal of this spectacular event. February can have some long nights in Toronto, but with the creativity of some well-lit minds, spectacular art is beamed onto the city. How exactly do visitors feel knowing that when they come here, admission's free? Delighted. With the popularity ever increasing, the reviews have naturally been glowing. What a bright idea. Despite another cold and dark winter, Torontonians have made their way out of their homes and into the light. Now, gazing around at all this artwork might make you a little hungry, so don't forget to bring a light snack, but don't forget it's the kind that saves your energy. Reporting live from the Toronto Light Festival, this is Marco Zerudo for EBC News.
Thank you, Marco. That is this week's Eagle News Canada. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our website at Eaglenews.PH. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Eaglenews.PH. Thank you for watching. I'm Lou Aquino. I'm 1 with 25.